Hi guys, welcome to Money Talks. My name is Eric.
And I'm Rosie.
And today we're going to be hearing from Amy Wilson, Director of Alumni Relations here at Taylor, about average cost of living.
Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Amy Wilson, and I am the Director of Alumni Programs at Taylor, and today I am going to be talking about average living costs, and mainly how I use a budget. So, a little bit about me. I graduated in 2011 from Taylor and then did the MAHI program and have worked at Taylor ever since. I'm 27, I'm single, and I live in Noblesville, Indiana. So I thought I'm going to tell you at the beginning, why do I live in Noblesville, Indiana? And that actually affects my budget decisions. So I had lived in Upland for a little while, and I decided that living here was becoming a little bit challenging for me, which I know might come to a surprise to you. Upland is obviously a great place to live when you're in your 20s. So I decided to move to Indianapolis. And that was a really thoughtful decision and something I had to think through and ask a lot of people about because it really was going to affect my budget. So now I commute to Taylor, so I have to pay for gas money. I live in a more expensive place. Upland is actually pretty affordable, even though your rent might seem high. It's actually very cheap. And also just cost of living. Top It is really good food, but when you live in Indianapolis and you have hundreds of restaurants to choose from, it is really tempting to go out and eat with your friends. So there's just more costs that come from living in a big city. So I had to think through that. So that's one of my big budgeting decisions. I think that could affect you as you graduate because maybe the decision to live at home and save some money or to live in an apartment is on your mind right now. And living at home saves a ton of money. My brother did it. It was a great choice for him. For me, I thought I might go a little mad if I lived at home. And so I decided it's not the right choice for me. And that costs more money. And so you have to weigh those things out. Emotional things can also impact your finance and your budget. So you just have to think about that. For me, creating a budget started right after I graduated and was in grad school making very little money. And so I had to learn how to live off little. Now that I have a full-time job, I still have to be really wise with it. And I think when you budget, really it comes down to stewardship. Stewardship is the key concept behind budgeting because it's a biblical principle and it's something that the Lord calls us to. And so if you just approach your budget as money that you get to spend, you're gonna go wrong pretty quickly. And the reason I think that is because if you don't do a budget, it's really hard to live within your means. And two, if you don't budget from a biblical perspective, you really can lose sight of what's important pretty quickly. So for me, budgeting starts as a stewardship philosophy. How am I stewarding what God has given me? I believe really strongly in that, and that impacts how I spend my money. So I created some budget categories, if you will, and I'm going to get into those in a minute. But first, I'll tell you what program I use. So I decided to use mint.com, and that has been a good tool for me. What I realized, though, after a year or two of using that, was every single month I was spending just a little bit more than I was making. It might have just even been $15, $20, $50, $100, but over time, that impacts your savings. And so I decided to get pretty intense, and wait for it. I decided to do an accordion folder. Now I know you think this is really cool, and it is, let me tell you. So I have my folder of money, and some of the categories I have are groceries, restaurants, coffee, because I really like that, budget for it. Starbucks is a money sucker, but it's good. So gas, obviously, shopping, because I love shoes, entertainment, so that's like going to the movies, going to a concert, if I want to get my nails done, that comes out of my entertainment, gifts. Budgeting for gifts is something I've just recently started doing, but it's been a really good thing for me to do. And the reason being, every year at Christmas time, I always get really stressed about Christmas gifts. And so I'm like, oh, I forgot to save up for it. Which is silly because Christmas comes every year. So save up money for gifts, even little things. Your friend gets sick and you want to buy them flowers, it's good to have a budget for it. Health. Let's talk about health for a second because who wants to spend money on ibuprofen? Nobody. But then you go to the doctor, you're sick, and they give you a prescription and it costs $90. It feels painful to pay it. But if you budget for it, it feels a little bit less painful. It still does hurt, I promise you. I have skipped prescriptions because I don't want to spend money on them, but I don't encourage that. And then I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. So, so I spend mainly all of my purchases or come out of my folder. And besides that, I do all my constant bills like utilities and tithing and trying to think what else, car insurance, my cell phone. Those I put on a credit card because it's the same amount every month. I know how much it is, it's paid off. Where I struggle is eating out, shopping, those types of things. So this helps me kind of control that part of my spending. The other big thing to think about is tithing. And tithing goes back to what I was saying before with stewardship, because this really is the Lord's money. And if you see it that way, it changes how you live and how you spend your money. So for me, I try to tithe 10%. I think that there's seasons of life you can give more, and there's seasons that you can give less, but I think it's really important to make sure you're tithing. I try to put that as the first fruits of my income, and I try to be really faithful in that. Some people give all their tithe to their church. I choose not to. I give a portion to my church. The largest portion goes to my church. The other portion a pretty big portion of my tithe comes actually back to Taylor. And for me, this place really impacted me, and so I want to be faithful to give back to it because I want it to be the same place for students in 20 years. And so I'm faithfully giving back to Taylor as part of my tithe. And then I have two different nonprofits that I really believe in that are doing awesome things for the kingdom in Indianapolis, and I give to those two things, and those are even smaller portions. So tithing is really important. It's a really significant part of our money and our funds because, once again, it's the Lord's money, and so you need to be careful to make sure you're giving back to Him first. So that is all I have to say about budgeting. Make sure you do it. Please do not forget about it and go spend like crazy because I promise you'll regret it. And yeah, just remember that what you have and what you earn is the Lord's, and be really careful and wise with that. Thanks.